Um, yeah, let's open up to the book of Genesis chapter 11. We'll get some understanding. I hope everybody had a good week. Just like it says in the Ten Commandments, you know, 6 days, shall work be done, but on the Sabbath is the set is a is the Sabbath of rest, and no work is to be done. All right. So real quick, let's go there. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20, so we can read it and just put it into our minds, man, that the Sabbath, has to be kept, that it must be kept, and that how it is a day of rest for us. All right. So we'll be going back over a lot of this, a lot of the understanding, man, for the Sabbath and things of that nature. All right, so that everybody can get that, that refresher that they need from it, and just to receive proper understanding. Of course, you have many like doctrines out there, that say you can have relations on the Sabbath, sexual relations on the Sabbath, and all kind of madness out there, man. But you know, scriptures, show us otherwise. Um, but anyway, let's uh, let's read this in Exodus chapter 20, and we're going to start at verse 8. So now it says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." Okay, so remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. So remember, we got to remember when it talks about remember the Sabbath day. Remember, we got to honor this day. All right, it's a day above all days. Okay, because remember, this is a high holy day that's weekly. That we basically come together, and we go over scripture and we receive understanding. All right. So and we must keep it holy. Okay, keep it set apart, keep it sanctified, keep it as a consecrated day. Okay. So remember. So now it says, verse 9: 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh thy power. In it thou shalt thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. You see that? So remember the seventh day, all right? So remember you have 6 days, right? 6 consistent days that you can work, you can buy, sell, cook, do whatever you need to do. All right, but the seventh day, that's the Sabbath of rest. So remember, you have to cease, desist, all right, from whatever works that you're doing, okay? And you have to basically, we give reverence unto the Most High. We reflect upon the week and all the things that He's done for us. And, hold on, sorry. It's lock it. Don't have to sneeze. So, and reflect on many of the things which He's done for us, okay? So now that's what it says. So nobody in your house, man, should be doing any type of work if they stay with you or living with you. All right. So that's why it says, but it says the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. All right. So now he says, for in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. All right. He says, wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and he hallowed it. Okay. He consecrated, he sanctified it. He made it a day that is holy unto the children of Israel. All right. So I just wanted to bring that up, man, just to give a little reminder. All right. So, we are in the Sabbath day, and then tomorrow night, towards the end of the Sabbath, all right, we have a new moon coming up. All right. So we'll be going into our second month of the year, and, you know, we'll be getting ready for the memorial assignment. All right. And for those who are keeping the seventh Passover, that is the Passover for those who were, far off, couldn't make it, or who were unclean. Okay. So, we'll definitely go into Numbers chapter 2 and read about that, tomorrow night, for our new moon class. Okay. So now Let's open up to the book of Genesis, chapter 11. Okay. So, we've gone over the previous chapters in Genesis. Excuse me. We've gone over the previous chapters in Genesis. All right. So, we went through the creation, we went through the creation of man. All right. We went into the location of the Garden of Eden. We seen where man was basically, planted in the Garden of God or paradise. Um, we got the actual locations, for paradise where it was actually located. Um, we got to see, we got to go into the fall of Adam. All right, we got to see who the serpent was, all right, or is. We got to see. We went into the text, man, and we got to see a lot of those things. So, all praise to the Most High for the understanding that's given. Then, we basically went into how the earth was basically defiled, by the evil works. We went into the fallen angels, the whole understanding about that, showing you how they were actually, yes, they were the sons of Adam, you know, that basically fell away from the Lord and began to marry mortal, women of other nations, right? So they began to basically go out of control. All right. So yes, they were called the sons of God. Okay. The sons of Adam were basically called the sons of God, but it started with Enos. Okay. So remember, with Seth was appointed, right? And then you had Enos, his son, Seth's son, and that's when man began to be called by the name of the Lord or the sons of God. So we went into that, we broke that down. We went into how the earth was corrupt. All right, we went into Adam's, lineage, right, going all the way from Adam. We got to see, who died when, how long did Adam live for, all right. How long did Noah live? Okay. So we got to see all of that. All right. And, just the blessed new spirit of the Most High that he did. He revealed all of that to us. And then, we went through the flood, went through, a lot of those things. So we went into the table of nations. All right. We broke down some of the nations, man. It shows you, who some of these nations are today. And, of course, so now we're going to be in Genesis chapter 11. All right. So now the thing that you guys really want to understand is that Genesis chapter 11 it would basically take place before Genesis chapter 10. All right. Because Genesis chapter 10, you know what I'm saying? That's basically showing you how everything was overspread. Okay. And it shows you the location and their territories. All right. The land masses that basically were given unto, the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? So you had Japheth, right? Um, which his name means enlarged, right? So basically, he got a much larger portion of land, okay? And that larger portion of land was basically like the whole of Asia, right? From like, say, for instance, from China, to Europe, you know what I mean, and also to like the islands, all right, what they call the Isles of the Gentiles. So, you'll read about many of those locations, all right. So those are dealing with pretty much Japheth. All right, so like the Philippines, the island of Java, Malaysia, Thailand. You know what I'm saying? So those are like places where Japheth dwelled. All right, and then also, you go into like certain regions in the Mediterranean. You had Japheth there too, like um, what you call the island of Cyrus, which is Kittim. Okay, Rodin, right? The island of Rodin, if I pronounce it correctly, which also was like one of the sons of Japheth, or Javan. So then, the Greek Isles, all of that. So we went through many of those nations, and we seen where they inhabited, different regions of the land. All right. Also, we looked into the empires. Okay, so we showed you the first, really the first two major empires that were upon the face of the earth at that time. All right, so we saw Babylon, right, which was under Nimrod, and we also seen that Ashur, right, who basically was the founder of the Assyrian empire, and those were the two major empires, you know what I'm saying, that were on the face of the earth at that time. Okay. after the flood. So now in Genesis chapter 11, right, we're going to pick up where, basically it says this in Genesis chapter 10. Now check this out. So we're going to Genesis chapter 10, and I'm going to read verse 8. So now this is one of the sons of Ham. So now it says in Cush, right? So we all know who Cush is. Cush is the father of your Ethiopians. It says Cush begat Nimrod. So Nimrod pretty much was an Ethiopian. It says he began to be a mighty one in the earth, right? So Nimrod began to accumulate power, right? So now it says, and he was a mighty hunter before Yahweh. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yahweh. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, right? So Babel, right, which means confusion. The beginning of his kingdom was Babylon. So if you look on any of your Bible atlases or your map, you'll basically see that Babylon is the region in which Nimrod practically began his rule. All right, let me see if I got my atlas on here. My atlas. Let's see. I think I have one of these Bible charts, maps, and timelines. So let's see. It's the Old Testament, Issachar, Zebulun. It's the world timeline. So, let's see if I can find a good map for you guys real quick. Because this is really some good history, man. It's really interesting history. It has a map here, but I don't think you guys will be able to see it. It's going into like the four kingdoms.
Hey, is this the thing?
Hold on, guys. These are Christian religions and cults. Well, I'll use this one. So if you can see it, right? If you guys can see it, this is Babylon. Or if you have it in the back of your Bible, if you can look in the back of your Bible, right, you'll see the region of Babylon. So it says Babylon, which you see in the brown, all right. So this is not the ancient Babylon, but this is like the modern Babylon, or what they would call the Neo-Babylonian Empire. This is just a map. This is just a map of their kingdom, but the one with Nimrod, all right, that was the first. Okay, so in Genesis chapter 10, it shows you that his kingdom, all right, that was his kingdom was the first to be established after the flood. All right, and it says Erech, it says Akkad, it says Calneh in the land of Shinar, right? So in the land, I'm in Genesis chapter 10, and I just read verse 10. I just read the kingdoms of Nimrod, all right? So it was Babel, right? Or Babylon, okay? And it says Erech, Akkad, Calneh in the land of Shinar, all right? The land of Shinar would basically be like that region between the Euphrates and the Tigris River, all right? So that whole land of that whole area is in the land, what you would call the land of Shinar, all right? So now it says, out of that land went forth Ashur, right? Ashur and built Nineveh and the city Rehoboth and Calah, all right? And Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city, all right? So you see those. These were the basically like the first empires, all right? So Nimrod had the first like basically empire after the flood that was on the earth, okay? So they said So they also say in history that Sargon the Magnificent, right, or Sargon the First, basically was like the first world ruler, all right, before the flood. Okay, so basically Sargon he ruled the same region, all right, but you see that was like during the time of Adam, right, before the deluge. So now let's go back to Genesis chapter 11. Now check this out. So now it says, and the whole earth was one language and of one speech. All right. So basically, it says in the Hebrew they were one lip, right, and of one word. Okay. So it says, so basically they all spoke the same language at this time. There was no division in the languages of the people that were on the face of the earth at this time. So in Genesis chapter 10, you see all of the nations, right? You see all of the nations that came from Japheth, they came from Ham, and they came from Shem. They all spoke one language at this time. All right. And remember, that language was Lashawan Kodash, all right, or the ancient Hebrew, okay, the holy tongue. They all spoke this language, all right, at one point. So now in this chapter, you're going to see also when the languages began to change and when there began to be language barriers. So now check this out, all right. So now real quick, let's go back to Genesis chapter 10 and let's examine this. So Genesis chapter 10 and verse 21, now check this out. It says, unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, right? So it says that Shem was the father of all of the children of Eber. Okay, so who are all the children of Eber? It goes back to your Hebrews. Okay, your Israelites. What did the Israelites speak? The Israelites spoke Hebrew. All right. They spoke the Hebraic tongue. They had a Hebraic dialect, all right, or tongue, okay? So they spoke Hebrew. So now it says, all right, the brother of Japheth the elder, even unto him were children born, all right? So now it's going to list all of the children of Shem, and then it's going to show you where, it's basically going to show you, right, how his lineage breaks down. So now it says, in the children of Shem, Elam, Asher, right, and Arphaxad, Lud, Aram, right? And it says, in the children of Aram were Hol and Gathar. It says, and Mesh. And Arphaxad begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber. You see that? So here you go. Eber was born, okay? So Eber was about 1, 2, 3. So he's probably about like the third generation from Shem. All right. So basically, he was the great grandson of Shem. Okay. Because all right, so you have Shem, right? You have Arphaxad, you have Selah, you have Eber. All right. So basically, he was like the third. So now it says, and unto Eber were born 2 sons, and the name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Jotan. You see that? So in his days was the earth divided, right? And it's showing us right there. He had a brother that was named Jotan. So when you read about Jotan, he basically was the father of many of your Arabian people. All right. So the people who lived in like what they would call like Arabia, right? He was there first. But then you see Ishmael came in, right? Ishmael was born much later, but Joktan, his people and his tribes, all right, families, they were the ones who inhabited all of that region. Okay. So like Yemen, so what you would call Yemen, Oman, Saudi Arabia, you know what I'm saying? The cities of Mecca, Medina, you know, though those they didn't exist at that time, but I'm just giving you like certain locations and cities where these people basically existed. All right. So, that's where Joktan's, his kindred basically lived. All right. So now, so it says And let me read verse 25 again. And unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided. And his brother's name was Joktan, right? So basically, remember, Peleg's name means division, okay? So there was a division made during this time, right? So some say that this is when the earth began to basically be divided, right? But I don't believe that to be true. This is most likely when the earth, the earth was overspread and everybody became divided. You see that during his day, all right? So in the third, basically Peleg was like, let's see, he's probably about the fourth generation. All right. So four generations, right? You know what I'm saying, have passed, okay? And the earth basically became basically was overspread. All right. So now it says this is why I say that the earth wasn't divided at this time. There was no, you know what I mean? Because remember, you got to look at it. The flood happened, right? The flood occurred. So now just think about how much of the earthquakes, the severe storms had already occurred that could have already broken up the earth before Noah and his family touched dry land. All right. So remember, you're not just looking at it as a massive flood that just rained 40 days, right? But you're looking at all of the things that come along with a catastrophic event, right? Let's look at it like this. What they say? What did they say happened to Atlantis? What else? It sunk, right? It sunk, right? So then, what they say happened to Lemuria? What they say happened to the city, the continent of Mu, right? All of these missing continents. You see what I'm saying? If the Earth, if the Earth was of basically one large landmass, right, like this, right? You don't think all of that water that was on the face of the Earth could have broke it up? You see what I'm saying? Remember, it covered all of the Earth unto the highest mountain. It said that it was 15 cubits above the highest mountain. Remember when the brothers and sisters were here, right? We looked up what was the tallest mountain on the face of the earth, and the mountain was Mount, I think Everest, right? Everest was the tallest mountain, right? So it says that Mount Everest was underwater. You know what I mean? So now just imagine when the flood water started to abate, right? Then you start to see all of the destruction that basically started to come along with what that happened with those catastrophic events that happened during the flood. So remember, it just wasn't the flood that the Most High brought. That's what we read. The flood represents what? The cleansing. You hear what I'm saying? The flood represents the cleansing of wickedness, right? The washing away of it. The earth had to be purified once again. But the destruction of the wicked still had to come. All right. So so I mean that's just my take. That's just my take on it. You know what I mean? Others may have their take on it, but that's just my take on looking at it a little bit more deeper. All right.
I think it gets even simpler than that because you have to look at it like this. There's a flood and he's floating to try and find dry land somewhere else. There have to be other land somewhere else.
Right, but what I'm saying is that that water could have basically destroyed much of those lands, right, and caused a lot of it to break up. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? So remember, you got earthquakes. Yeah, you still had earthquakes, all of that stuff that happened. You know, like I said, it just didn't rain like the scriptures show. You got to look a little bit deeper into it than that. You know, you're looking at tsunamis, all kind of destruction that just came upon the earth. You see? So just like now, right? You got all these earthquakes that happen, land masses that's cracking open sinkholes, all of those different things that's coming upon the face of the earth. Excuse me, the earth right now. All right. So the Most High said He has spirits of vengeance. You know, like earthquakes, hurricanes, etc., lightning storms, fires. All of those things, man, are spirits that the Most High use, man, for as tools of vengeance. All right, to execute judgment. All right. So waters is one of them. All right. So now, just look at it this way: the earth at this time is the earth, the land masses. As far as I'm concerned, they've already been broken up. All right. So no one knows exactly what the earth looked like at that particular time. You know what I mean? Outside of those who did the geography. All right, at that time, or at this time that we're reading about. So now it says, and it came, it says, verse 2, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So this is why I say, right, that Genesis chapter 11 took place before chapter 10. Okay, because this is when everybody was still one. All right, they were still in the same region. So it says they journeyed from the east. I think the baby's fussy. It says they journeyed from the east and they found a plain in the land of Shinar. All right. So now if you want to wait till you come back. All right. So now it says, and they said one to another, "Go and let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." And they built brick for stone and slime, and they for mortar. Right. It says, and they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose tops may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Right? So they said, all right, well, let's create, like they said, like, all right, well, let us build us a city. So they wanted a capital city, right? So that's where Babylon came from, or Babel. Okay, they built Babel. All right, they built what you would call the the Tower of Babel. All right, to represent their city. Okay, the Tower of Babel represented the rebelliousness of the people at this time, the wickedness that they were going to commit. So they thought that basically by them building a tower, they can escape the destruction of the Most High, right? The next time He decides to bring a flood, because remember, that's what their forefathers, that's what their fathers and their fathers were teaching them, that a great destruction happened upon the whole face of the earth for the wickedness of their ancestors prior to them, all right, prior to the flood. So now they thinking that this, all right, let us make a city. All right, let us build a tower that'll reach unto the heavens, right? So that they could do what? Escape judgment, right? And they also had that godlike complex, okay, thinking themselves to be gods, all right? He said, let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. So even then, they said, all right, well, now we got to give ourselves a name, okay? Let's be one people, all right? So then there you go, the Babylonians, all right? Call themselves the Babylonians, okay? So you have the Tower of Babel, the Tower of Confusion, and now you got your Babylonian people at this time too. All right. So now it says, "Least we be scattered abroad." So they understood that the consequences for their wickedness was that they were going to be scattered. Okay. So now it says in verse 5, so it says, Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. So now you see now the Most High is coming down to intervene, right? You know what I'm saying? In the affairs of men, to seeing what they're doing now. All right. So now Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. So this is what the Father came down to see. He came down to see what they were doing. All right. And Yahweh said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have one language. They have all one language. And this they be being to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do, right? So that's the thing now. So the Most High understood, look, they're one, they're unified, right? They all have one mindset, okay? They all have one language, right? So they understand one another. And now he said there's nothing that'll be restrained from them. What does he mean by that? Nothing will be restrained from them. Meaning they're gonna do whatever their wicked imagination desires for them to do. All right. So remember, they accomplished building a city. They accomplished building a tower that reached unto heaven, right? And they did this all being one. All right.
All be one me.
All being one, meaning that be all one people. All right, unified. Okay, in wickedness. All right, all in wickedness. Sit down, son. So now it says, he said, "Go to, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another." So now, why is this part important, Allah?
Because this is when the languages were given to the different nations.
Right. So now, when we go back to Genesis chapter 10, now let's read this. Okay. So now, let's check out verse 19. Now these are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their country, and their nations. You see that? You see that? What is the Most High showing you right there?
Meaning that this is when he made the different nations.
They all had different tongues, even within their nation. All right? They all had different dialects, okay? Even within their families, okay? That's why he said, and these are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues. See, tongues is plural, right? So meaning that there was more than one dialect that these Hamites had. So you see, one tribe will be able to understand one tribe, then another tribe won't be able to understand that tribe. You see that? Because their languages will be different. All right. And that still applies even to this very day. Are not tongues still diverse? Are not tongues still different? You see that? Is there not a different dialect of English from the English in which we speak here? Now, even amongst us, the so-called blacks, right? Don't we have a form of English? What is it called? Slang or Ebonics, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's like
even in Africa, there's many dialects.
Even amongst the Mexicans, right? They have different dialects. You have what you call Castilian, right, which is supposed to be the proper form of Spanish, and then you have the broken form of what you would call Spanish that Mexicans speak. All right. So there's different dialects, you know what I'm saying, that they speak. Okay. So now let's go back. So the Most High basically wanted their languages to be divided. All right, he wanted to be scattered, but, because also this is just a strategically done by the Most High to show us that you cannot become one if you do not understand each other. Right, your ideologies become different. Right, you know what I'm saying? People are going to follow who they can understand. Okay. So then you have different families. So the Most High basically he divided it up so cunningly, right? To where that even in the families Japheth, Ham, and Shem, they still wouldn't be able to understand each other. Only certain families will be able to understand one another, right?
Israel, remember if they didn't say a certain word a certain way, you weren't of that tribe.
Absolutely, right? Let's pull that one up real quick. I believe it's in the book of Judges.
I think it was the tribe of Benjamin.
Yeah, here we go. Judges chapter 12, and we'll start at verse 4. Right. So this is when Jephthah was a judge over Israel. Right. So now it says, then Jephthah gathered together all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim And the men of Gilead smote Ephraim because they said, Ye Gileadites are fugitives of Ephraim among the Ephraimites and among the Massaites. It says, and the Gileadites took the passages of Jordan before the Ephraimites, and it was so that when those Ephraimites who were escaped said, Let me go over, that the men of Gilead said unto him, Art thou an Ephraimite? If he say nay, then say they unto him, Say now Shibboleth. And he said Shibboleth, for he could not frame to pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him at the passage of Jordan. And there fell at that time of the Ephraimites 40,002. You see that? So now he's like, yo, they like that that pronunciation was key for them. All right. They could not say it. You know what I'm saying? If they couldn't say shibboleth, right? If they said it some other way because they couldn't pronounce it correctly, then that's what was gonna happen. They basically executed those Ephraimites. All right. So now let's go back to Genesis chapter 11. So that's why it's key for us to understand how the Most High basically divided, all right, the languages, okay? He divided them in different dialects, all right? So now check this out. Now this is key. Verse 8 is key, okay? So Yahweh scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth. You see that? And they left off to build the city. So they didn't finish the building of the city, right? That they were building, all right? Babel or Babylon, okay? They left off from building the city. And they basically what? He said, so Yahweh scattered them abroad from the fence, from thence upon the face of all the earth. And remember, that was one of the things that they didn't want to happen, right? That's why they said we're gonna be one people, we're gonna have one name, we're gonna have that one major city, we're gonna have one large tower that represents us, and then what? So that they do not be scattered upon all of the face of the earth. Okay. So now what he says in verse 9, he says, Therefore is the name of it called Babel, right? Confusion, because Yahweh did thence confound the languages of all the earth. You see that? He said he confounded all the language of all the earth. All right. So right there, what happened? Okay, he basically confounded all languages. All right. So it says, and from thence did Yahweh scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. You see that? So now, this is where you go back to Peleg. All right. So this is when the whole earth began to be what you would call overspread. So let me see something real quick. Let me look up something. So that still on here? So Miss Arlana doesn't think I'm crazy or I'm lying or something.
I actually said that. I said it was believable considering that Noah had to go from one point to another for safety, you know?
And just imagine Noah seen all of this.
And then you have to think about it like this. If there was nowhere else to go and that was the only portion of land that was drowned, then he would have to sit there and wait for the Most High to basically drain all the water from the earth, from that small portion of land, in order to go back on it.
Right.
You know? So I never said it was crazy. It's new to hear, but it's not far fetched.
What's not far fetched?
What you're saying?
Oh yeah.
Cousin for book, not my sock. There. You got a cousin page right there. Is anyone on the conference?
No, I didn't open the conference.
Why not?
Huh?
Why
I just didn't open it.
not?
No. I'm trying to record it from my laptop. I can record from my laptop. Yeah. So basically, it says here in the Hebrew, right? Palag, right? It says to divide or split. Okay, to cleave, right? It says primitive root to split, literally or figuratively, divide, right? Now check this out. Check this out. It says, now this is what his name means, right? When you read the Genius Hebrew Chaldean Lexicon, it says who Jehovah has made distinguished, I believe. Yeah, to who Jehovah had made distinguished, right? So it says the Pael, right, is to divide as a channel, watercourse. It says metaphor to divide their tongue, to cause them to fall out amongst themselves. You see that? So that's also what divide can mean. Basically, this is basically when the Lord confounded the languages. All right, during the days of Peleg. All right. So now check this out. Let's add up some of the days. Let's add up some of the number of years. Okay. From Peleg, from Arphix or from Shem to Peleg. Let's see how many years, all right, passed. Okay. Let's see how many years passed. So now we have, it says Arphix said, excuse me. So Shem was 100 years old when and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. All right. So let's say Shem was 100 years old when he begat Arphaxad, right? So now it says Shem and Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 530 years and begat Salah, right? So now 100 plus 35 is 135 years. So now we're looking at 135 years or 35 years literally after the flood, okay, have passed. Shem was 100. Shem is now 135 years old. So 35 years has passed, okay? So now let's see how old Selah is. It says, and Arphaxad after he begat Selah was Arphaxad after lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber, right? So he lived 30 years after he begat Eber, right? Let's see. 135 plus, I said 30, right?
Is that your page?
Hold on. Yeah, 30 years. So now Shem is 165 years old. So 65 years have passed, all right? So now, after, let's see, now after Selah, right? Excuse me, now Selah, you had Eber. Now it says, and Selah lived after he begat Eber 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begat Peleg, right? Divided. So he lived 430 years. So 34 years. So you have 99 years have passed. 99 years. 99 years. Since the after the flood. 99 years have passed. All right. So now Shem is almost 200 years old. All right. So 99 years have passed. If we add in it from when he begat Arphaxad, when he begat Selah, and when he begat Eber. All right. So you got 35. You have 30, which is 60 years. Then you have to add 34 years after that. That's 99 years, right?
Wait, it says Shem lived after he begot Arphaxad 500 years.
Right.
And it says Arphaxad is 5 and 30. Oh, 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then Selah, he lived another 403 years.
Uh-huh. Remember, that's after he begat his first son.
Yeah, and then Selah was 30 when he begot his first child.
Mm-hmm.
And then Selah begot Eber. At 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Eber begot Peleg at 130 years.
Mm-hmm.
Or 430. So you'd have to add the 430.
Nope.
Because he was why?
Nope. Why? You only dealing when he begat his firstborn son. It said after he begat that son, he lived 400 and such years.
Oh, 430.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So
Damn.
now,
come get the
so that's why he said. So that's why he said, and Eber lived 404 and 30 years and begat Peleg, right? And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years and begat sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years and begat Reu, right? So after he begat Reu, he lived about like I think 209 years. All right. So now you see you see the lifespans beginning to diminish. You know what I mean? So let's continue. Let's continue adding up. Check this out. Let's see how many years old Shem is going to be when we get to Abraham. Okay. So now we have Peleg lived 30 years and begat Reu, right? So let's 30 years, bam. So Shem is 229 years old now. So now it says, and Peleg lived after he begat Reu 209 years and begat sons and daughters. So now remember, the earth is now basically overspread. All the nations are in these different locations in the earth now.
Wait, but it says the Arphaxad was begot 2 years after the flood. So you probably have to add 2 years to that.
No.
No, why not?
No. So she says, and the generation of Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. So he was 100 years old when he begat Arphaxad.
No, I'm saying when it comes to adding how much time, the birth of the next child after the flood, you have to add 2 years.
No.
Why not?
He wasn't, because he had him at 100. So basically he was like 90. He was like 99 when the flood came. Or like 98. 99, 98, one of them. But basically, that's what he's talking about, those 2 years.
Close your legs.
Those 2 years.
You already got doo-doo all in that pool. Close your legs.
That's what he's talking about when it's coming down to those 2 years. You hear me? You hear me? 200 years. I mean, the 2 years is going to get to 100. You're going to get to 100. All right? You're going to get to 100. Okay? Because remember, they were almost 100 when it happened. And even if you do add if you add the 2 years, it wouldn't make too much of a difference. No way, really. You know what I mean? You're just like two numbers also. Instead of this, he'd be like 231. You know what I mean? 231. But so now it says, and Reu lived after he begat Serug 207 years and begat sons and daughters, right? And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor. So now we got another 30 years. So Shem is 259, right? And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 9 and 20 years and begat Terah. So let's add 29, right? So Shem is now 288 years old, okay? 288 years old, right? When Terah is born. That is Abraham's father, all right? And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran, right? So now let's see how old Shem is. So he said 70 years. So this man was 70 years old when he had his sons, okay?
Why wouldn't you add how long they live compared to the birth of their children?
Well, you basically would start. That's a generation. Once that son is born, that's a generation. So when I had Ben, right? How old was I? Like 20, 28, 29?
Yeah.
No, Ben. It starts with him. It doesn't start with her. It starts with him.
He's 4, and you'll be 33 this year.
Yeah. So what? 29. So say for instance, I begat Ben at 29 years old, right? And then I begat sons and other sons and daughters, right? So it's going to start with him. Then it's going to pick up another generation when he has his first son. So say he has his first son at 40, right? You see what I'm saying? Then now that's another generation that starts with him. That's another generation born, right? So you're going to add when he had his first son. And then after that, you're just adding up his lifespan.
That's kind of confusing. Why not add how long they lived?
Because that's going to be ridiculous. All right, look. So now, if I was to add, right? If I was to add the 500 and something years, right? So it says here, like say for instance, Shem lived 500 years after he begat Arphaxad, right?
But if you don't add Shem, but you add all his descendants, then you see how long.
No, I'm trying to tell you, when you're just adding the rest of the length of the lifespan to the next length of the lifespan, right? You're gonna get an outrageous number. I'll check this out. He said 500 years, right? So Shem, 500 years plus. How long did Arphaxad live? Arphaxad lived 403 years. 403 years. 903 years have passed just with those two lifespans alone. So that means just from Shem to Arphaxad, 903 years have passed. Oh, man. We haven't even gotten to Selah.
But you'd have to subtract a year because he was already 100.
Even if you subtract a year, you're still going to get over 900 years to 899 years. That's too long. Well, what I'm saying is when you're adding from when the generation begins. So I'm first generation, Ben is second generation. All right. His son will be the third generation, right? His son will be the fourth generation. So now, say for instance, if I'm like 70 years old and I got to see the fourth generation of my sons or whatever the case may be, right? You know, then that's how you basically add or calculate the amount of time from the moment the generation is born. You see what I'm saying? You don't count my whole lifespan and his whole lifespan. You see? So that means if he dies at 60 years old, I die at 70, right? You know what I mean? What's 60 plus 70?
13.
13.
130.
Okay. 70 plus 60. Yeah, 130. 130 years. Just between us, that's 130 years from my lifespan to his lifespan.
Hey, give me that.
Right? But you have to see what I'm doing is, so say for instance, all right, look, I was 29 when I had him, right? So how old would he be if he had his first son? Let's say he's like I said, 40 years old when he have his first son, right? Look, he's 40, right? When he's 40 when he have his first son, I'll be 69. You see what I'm saying? I'll be 69 years of age. So now, let's say for instance, his son was 25, right? Let's say if his son was 25, right? When he had his first son. Guess how old I would be? Add 24 years. Add 24 years to my 69.
That'll be 89.
Actually 94.
6 plus 24.
69 plus 25. Plus 25. Or 25. 94. So I will be 90.
Hey.
I will be 90.
No.
I will be 94 years old by the third generation.
Come over here. Is that your coloring book? It's not your coloring book. What is that?
You see that?
Get over here. Sit down.
I will be 94 by the third generation. Now just imagine how old Adam was and he got to see his generations born. That means he got to see the corruption of the entire earth that was his, right? He saw his children fall away from the Most High. You see what I'm saying? Go into idolatry. He saw them marrying all of these different nations, right? And corrupting themselves. You know, now just imagine the type of toll they got to take on you as a man. Your son is a murderer. Your son built one of the first empires, right? Loot, plunder, and pillage other nations, right? Creating all kind of wickedness in the earth. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, and murdered your second born son, Abel, the one that the Most High loved. You see that? So just imagine, 930 years. He lived 800 years after that. So just imagine the things that man had to deal with for that long of a time. You know what I mean? Now think about all the other generations after that he saw live, die, do evil, all of that.
Be still.
God forbid, man. God forbid we find out what happened to Eve, what she was going through, what she was doing. You know what I mean? How she was dealing with stuff. You know?
Yeah, she lost 2 children all at the same time.
Yeah. 2 sons, but she gained one.
And in her old age, she had another child.
Yeah. So you got to look at those things. You know, those are the things that you got to look. You know, you look when you look deeper into. Well, you know, when you look deeper into those things, you start to put 2 and 2 together for a lot of this stuff.
Well, if you really want to dig into Eve, and she probably went into a state of depression, blaming everybody, probably even herself for what happened. You know?
Yeah, that's when you start reading in the first book of Adam and Eve and all that stuff.
But I'm saying, knowing how Eve was with pride, power, and everything, and knowing that everything was her fault on why this happened,
Mm-hmm.
she's gonna play the blame game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, so basically around this time, Shem is about 250, I believe 59 years of age. All right, he's 259 years old. Okay, so that means he ain't even reached that that 500-year mark. You see what I'm saying? So he was like basically one of the last of the immortals. You know, one of the last of the immortals, man. So just imagine you seeing your grandfather. He's lived almost 500 years. Can you fathom that? Like, Grandpa, how old are you this year? Man, I'm just turning 460. 460?
Figure that.
Like, you got to tell me about some of the things that you've seen. That means he remember when the white man invaded. I'm like, he can remember when the white man invaded Europe, when the Moors down there. He can remember all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Living like almost 40 years.
However, age now it probably came.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, from a biblical perspective, you can see, you can see all they can basically break down to you all of what they saw. You know what I mean? The things and the events that transpired before your birth, and they could tell you about it. And I could pass it down to him, my son. He could pass it down to his son and his son after him. You know what I mean? How do you think those events basically got handed down from generation to generation? If you have men, look at the lifespans of these men. Shem lived he lived before the end of the first age of man. You see what I'm saying? He lived almost 100 years. So basically, for that 100 years, for that 90 some years he was on the earth, he seen the wickedness that was going on. And his grandfather Lamech, would be able to tell him what? Be able to tell him all of the what happened. His grandfather Lamech was able to tell him all of what he needed to know about what went on. And then just think about it. Not Enoch. Enoch was already gone, but I believe you know, Methuselah, 969 years old before he died. So he's seen a lot. He's seen corruption. You live 900 years. 900 years. Come on now. Those are the immortal. Those were immortals, or short of being immortal. You know what I mean? That shows that Most High shows us just how short of immortality we actually were in the beginning, right? 1,000 years is a day to the Most High, so we were a day short of immortality. All right, but that just goes back to show you, man, just how powerful, you know, just how powerful this word is, man. It shows us these things. All right. So now let's continue reading. So now it says these are the generations of now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begat Lot. Okay. So now it shows you that Haran was the first of the sons to begat a son. Okay, and Lot was that son. So it says, and Haran died before his father Terah in the land of the nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. So he died in Ur of the Chaldees. Okay, that's where Haran died. And Abram and Nahor took them wives, and the name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. You see that? So basically, Haran had what? Two daughters. All right. He had two daughters. He had a son and two daughters. So he had three children. Okay. So now it says, so now it's showing you right there, right? So, and Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran. All right. So she was the daughter of Haran. All right. So basically, that would be considered his niece that he married. All right.
Well, it looked like he had 3 sons and a daughter, right?
No, not Haran. No,
Haran isn't his son?
no. Haran is the son of Terah. Terah. Okay. It says, in Abram and Nahor took them wives. All right. So it says they took them wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarah or Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. Okay, so from what I've read, right? You know what I'm saying? In certain sources, yes.
But 27 says that Terah got Abram, Nahor, and Haran.
Yes.
So he did have 3 sons.
Yeah, you're talking about Terah. Yeah, he had 3 sons. I'm talking about Haran.
No.
Because it says that Nahor married supposedly he married the daughter. He married Milcah, the daughter of Haran, meaning his brother's daughter. His brother's daughter would basically be his niece that he married. You see that?
Yeah.
So now some say from what I've read that Iscah is supposed to be Sarai. You see that? That Iscah was just another name for Sarai. All right. But I still haven't tied that together at all. All right. I still haven't tied that together whatsoever. Okay. So I mean that's still something as a subject of study, but that means that Abraham didn't marry his sister; he would have married his niece. You see what I'm saying? You know, and then some be like, "Oh, there is no law against marrying your niece."
That's a lie.
All right. So I'm like, well, I don't under. I'm like, well, shoot, I couldn't say, man. I'm like, yo, I mean, hey, was still a very heavily populated place, man. You know what I mean? So I'm like, Abraham could have found him a wife of another lineage or whatever. You know what I mean? Because it does say that Nahor had other sons and daughters, and he could have married. You know what I mean? How can I put it? He could have married, his cousin. That's how they usually kept the bloodlines pure anyway, right? But that's just from what I've read from other sources or whatnot, man, about the whole Iscah thing. Like I said, I haven't put two and two together. You know what I mean? And then the name Iscah doesn't have any tie to Sarah that I know of. All right, but it says, but Sarai was barren; she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son and Lot the son of Haran and his son's son, right? And Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. Now let's read that one more time. Let's examine that a little bit. And Terah took Abram his son and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, right? So meaning his grandson, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and
so if
they
he had any ties to them, he would have claimed her as some kind of blood.
yes.
Yeah.
So that was his daughter-in-law. Okay. So it's his daughter-in-law. All right, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Haran meaning Syria. Okay. So Syria is basically another name for Haran. I mean, Syria's name before was Haran. All right. That's what they call it. Or in Latin terms, they call it Padan Aram or something like that. And it says, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. All right. So he died there in Haran or Syria. Okay. That's where he died. Why they named it Haran, I don't know.
After the dead son.
I couldn't tell you. But that means if you name a place after somebody, it means you had to take it over. You know what I mean? We don't know that. We don't know.
At the same time, there were other sons and daughters that were born to these men, that aren't accounted for.
Yep. Well, I mean, we only have what the scriptures give us.
But if you look at it, in all of chapter 11, it's saying these men brought forth these profound men, the ones they named, and then they say they had other sons and daughters. So they all multiplied.
True. Yeah, that's true.
And they could. A lot of them could have relocated right among Abraham and Terah and took over that land.
Right.
And in honor of the death of his son, they named it after him.
Well, my thing is, it says that Terah took his son Abram and Lot. So basically, it looked like it's trying to say that Terah took them out of the land of Ur, the Chaldeans. But when you read another scripture, it said Abraham basically was called and they left. And they went with him. Terah and the family went with him. You know what I mean? So I believe they still believed in the Most High. They were just still very heavily idolatrous. You know what I mean? They were still dabbling in idolatry. So let's real quick, let's check that out. Let's go to the book of Joshua, chapter 24.
No, mine stink.
Go to Joshua. Joshua chapter 24, and start at verse 2. Ooh. My Joshua chapter 24 ripped out. What the hell? So happen when you got children. But you always have a backup Bible. Remember that. Always got to have a backup.
Stop, little girl.
It's at Joshua 24. And let's read verse 2.
You take them tires off, you're not getting another car. No.
And it says, and Joshua said unto all the people, thus said Yahweh, God of Israel, your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood in old times, even Terah, the father of Abraham, and the father of Nechor, and they served other gods. You see that? And I took your father Abraham from the other side of the flood and led him throughout all the land of Canaan and multiplied his seed and gave him Isaac. You see that? So he said he multiplied his seed and gave him basically. I'm sorry. It says that he took him, right? He took him from his father's house, okay? Because they were serving other gods, other strange gods. All right. So now let's check this out. Let's check out Acts chapter 7.
And that's why you don't have any crayons. I'm sorry. Stop breaking stuff. Come over here and sit down.
Acts chapter 7. And let's read verse 2. Acts chapter 7 and we'll start at verse 1. Then said the high priest, are these things so? And he said, men, brethren, and fathers, hearken. The God of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia before he dwelt in Haran, and said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Haran. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed he removed him into this land, wherein ye dwell now. And he gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set a foot on it, yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. So before he had a child, man, he's like, yo, before he had Isaac, Abraham didn't get none of that as an inheritance that was given to him. But remember, it was going to be given to his seed after him. All right. So remember, the seed that it was given to was who? The Israelites.
I think Haran is where he was called from.
Yeah, he was called from Haran. Remember when you read when we read it in Genesis chapter 11, right? It says they went from the land of the Chaldeans into the to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and they dwelt there. So it doesn't specifically say that the Most High called that he called them from there. It's just showing like, yeah, it just says Terah took Abraham his son and Lot, you know what I'm saying, his son's son, Haran his son's son, I mean his grandson, his daughter-in-law, and they went forth from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. Now, in other accounts, you know what I'm saying, you get the little gist of it, right? So let's drop down and read. If we drop down and read chapter 12, right, in verse 1, it says, "Now, yeah, no, in Genesis, it says, now Yahweh had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee." You see that? And then that's when he said he'll make him a great nation. "And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran.
He was already.
Yeah, so he left. So they left Ur of the Chaldeans, and then they went to live in Haran. And then, bam, he was called out of Haran and into the land of Canaan. All right. So they left. So they left Ur of the Chaldees, I believe, because his because his son died. Yeah. Who?
Can we do part two? Can we pick it up after I shower them up?
Oh, go.
No, because they got boo boo.
Go ahead.
I want to finish.
That's so good.
No, don't pack it up. I just want to get this boo boo.